Hey everyone, Pupsker here. I wanted to talk about Umbra Forma today in Warframe because Umbra Forma, after being in the game for so long, and Umbral mods are at kind of a weird place, okay? So what exactly are Umbra Forma? If you don't know, Warframe has, at this point in the game, many different types of Forma, and one very specific type is Umbra Forma. You unlock this eventually when you get through the main quest and also unlock Umbra mods. This is a very specific polarity for three Warframe Umbral mods, and I think there's only two, maybe three, but I think there's only two Umbral mods for weapons. And all you have to do is play through the game, and eventually you'll unlock Umbral Intensify, Umbral Vitality, and Umbral Fiber for your Warframes, where they're a set, so they get stronger the more you have on. And for melees, you also have Sacrificial Pressure, which is an Umbral mod, and Sacrificial Steel, which is an Umbral mod. And don't get me wrong, they're still very good mods, but only during certain niche situations. Either way, those are the Umbral mods, and to apply an Umbra Forma, it's the exact same as any other Forma. You just go throw on Umbra, except you get this little Umbral symbol right there, or Umbra symbol. Either way, those are what Umbral mods are. In order to get Umbra Forma, you can get some usually every season of Nightwave. It's occasionally available through the Teshin shop on Warframe Steel Path once you unlock that, and it's also available occasionally one through an event or an alert or a dev stream drop, stuff like that here and there. While it was a lot better, cooler, and stronger in the early years of Warframe, Umbra Forma have definitely fallen off in their utility and usefulness in the grand scheme of Warframe. First and foremost, what Warframe should you actually use Umbra Forma on? Usually, you'd want to use Umbra Forma on more health-based Warframes, and there's three specific ones that come to mind. First off, Kurlevo. Kurlevo has 0 shield, therefore would usually take more advantage of health. It would take more advantage of armor, and Umbral Intensify is universally pretty decent because even if you don't have anything on, Umbral Intensify is still 44 ability strength, which is 14 more than regular Intensify. So if you're not using Archon Intensify and you want a little bit of a stronger base Intensify, you'd usually want to throw on Umbral Intensify if you have the Umbra Forma to spare, and that's just kind of universal on anyone. But since it's a set, once you actually upgrade it and you throw on all of the Umbral mods, you get a much higher boost of like 180 armor, 77% ability strength, 180% health, right? And you also get that sweet tower resistance, right? Which is less relevant, but like, hey, sentience and whatnot. Either way, that's what's going on there with the Umbral mods there. And since Kurlevo has health only, you can take a little bit of advantage of it. But the reason Kurlevo is less useful for Umbral mods is because Kurlevo gains a ton of Overguard with Recompense, his second ability. And Overguard does not take into account health by any like base default, and it does not take into account armor. It is purely kind of its own thing. So really, the biggest boost you're gonna get is Umbral Intensify and maybe Umbral Vitality. Sometimes if you don't remember to hit Overguard on Kurlevo, you get hit with health a little bit, and then you hit your Overguard ability. It'll still heal up your health, and the extra health will make you a bit tankier. But either way, it's not like a big boost. The two Warframes that you'd really want to use it on, usually it's going to be Nidus, okay? Nidus is a health stacking, damage-based invincible Warframe. The general idea is you larvae enemies together, you hit them with virulence, and that builds up your passive, which is if Nidus is killed with at least 15 stacks of mutation, 15 stacks are consumed, grants 5 seconds of invulnerability, and restores health. Since Nidus has 0 shield, it's really good to throw on Umbral Vitality, really good to throw on Umbral Intensify, and really good to throw on Umbral Fiber if you can afford it. I just haven't thrown it on here right now. Usually I'd throw that over that, and then maybe instead of something like that, I'd go probably that for now and just change my build around. My build's really goofy. I wouldn't pay too much mind to it, but either way, that's just kind of like how that goes, right? Yeah, we'll do that for now. Boom. Fixed up my Nidus Prime build, and now you'll take way more advantage of that health. I would still like to throw on my previous mod of adaptation somewhere, so that's why I'm gonna just keep it here to make myself even tankier, but you can always throw on whatever you feel like. So Nidus is a great use of armor and health because you build up more health, you build up more armor, you have a ton of health regeneration with your abilities, and you can also use parasitic link damage redirection. So yeah, that actually helps a ton with all of your added armor. So maybe, depending on how far you're playing, you don't even need to bother throwing on adaptation, but I'm just gonna be a little chicken, and I'm gonna throw that on as well. And then pretty much the third and final Warframe that takes huge advantage of Umbral mods would be Inaros, because yeah, no shock, Inaros is another health-based Warframe. So you'd usually want to throw on Umbral Fiber, Vitality, and Intensify. You'd throw on and Lifesteal off Desecrate, so you'd get your health back, you'd get most of your health back, and Invulnerability popping Sandstorm, right? Scarab Shell gives you even more armor, so you're even tankier, and then your fourth ability is just good AoE damage and corrosive, right? So it really uses good use with all of the health, all of the armor, and all of the strength. Other than that, since there's only really 3 massive Warframes that take huge advantage of the Umbral set, you can kind of throw them on any single Warframe, right? You think Wisp is good with Umbral set. Wisp is no better than any other Warframe in the game with the Umbral set. The only thing that you'd actually want is maybe Archon Intensify. I just can't remember if it counts restoring health with your first ability. So you could throw on, instead of Archon Intensify, you could throw on Umbral Intensify, right? The thing is, Wisp doesn't need health, and she doesn't need armor. So she's the same as any other Warframe. You can throw on Umbral Intensify for just more ability strength. And yeah, it is what it is. She works as well as any other Warframe. Like, Protea works well with Umbral Intensify because, guess what? It is more ability strength than if you were to not have it. But those are like the big ones. You could also, if you're thinking a tanky boy Warframes, you could throw it on Grendel. Grendel is primarily a health-based Warframe as well, with a little bit of shield. So I would say that Grendel also takes good advantage of Umbral Fiber and Vitality. If you ever want to swap your build around to make Grendel a lot tankier, you're 100% probably good to go to throw on Umbral Vitality and all of that. Because of the way that his general consuming of enemies works, you're going to have a lot of armor in the first place, and you are going to be tanky as hell because of that. And if you just throw on more fiber, more vitality, it'll just make that even stronger. So, hey, not too shabby, but it's just not something that you might need for sure. But hey, it's always up to you, because Grendel, I don't know if you can tell, he builds so much health and so much armor, but it definitely is really good. So yeah, I guess I would say those are the 4 Warframes which are really good with the Umbral set. There are definitely others, okay? You can use it on any Warframe you want. Umbral Intensify is good on essentially everybody, as long as the Warframe doesn't heal allies, because then you can just throw on Archon Intensify. But I'm kind of curious what everyone else thinks. Hey, maybe Atlas, any Warframes that can build off health armor in a big way, you could totally think about throwing on your Umbral set, because I do have it on Atlas as well. You can totally do that. It's really up to you, but just think, if a Warframe stacks damage or builds well off of health or off of armor, they are a really good candidate for the Umbral set in general, okay? So those are just the general Warframes that I would use those on. So I wanted to cut in a couple more Warframes just to talk about them. Here we have Valkyr Prime. Ever since her rework, she is actually really good with health and armor, because of how tanky it makes her. Her passive increases her rage meter when she melees, and then when it's high enough and she takes lethal damage, she's invincible, right? But because of that, you are going to be using armor tanking with your health a lot, so she is actually really good with Umbral Fiber and Umbral Intensify and Umbral Vitality. Adaptation's like universally good when you're health tanking and stuff like that. It might even help like shield and overguard tanking technically, but I would have to double check. Either way, she does take great use of that. And if you ever want to use the Arcane Battery, which is like maximum energy per armor point, and there's a lot of other like general armor stuff, right? It's not a perfect build. Probably don't want Arcane Reaper here, but don't worry about it. There's a lot of other things you can build around there, right? People are bringing up Corvex. A lot of people with Corvex's Augment mod. People are saying they like using Fused Crucible along with the Armor Energy mod, Arcane Battery, to have like an essential infinite amount of 4th ability laser. And then with health tanking, you can always get more ability strength with Bellicose, right? You can always get more health and stack that with Arcane Bellicose. So there's a lot of different things you can help that'll stack off each other with certain health and armor builds with those arcanes. And if you didn't know about Warframe armor in itself, armor is a linear scaling effective HP multiplier. And I quickly wanted to bring that up. So no matter how much armor you're building, you are building effective HP linearly, whereas damage, Tenno damage reduction formula, right? Net damage per gross damage, armor, it's a little different. So this is when I think you're attacking an enemy armor target versus this is your effective health for armor, or like this is just the math on armor. Either way, when you have a ton of armor, such as like on my Valkyr, I have 2800 base armor, so that's 90% damage reduction, which is an effective HP multiplier of 10 times, right? But if I double this to 5600, you'll see the HP multiplier is pretty much doubled up, right? Right, 2800, yeah, not quite, but pretty much. So 2800, right, 10.33. Then it goes to 5600, right, 19.67. Because I think it takes some off the top, remember? Because it like effectively starts right there, so it takes some off the top. But yeah, if you go from like 5,000, it's at 17, and then to 10,000 armor, yeah, it's an effective 34 times health multiplier because of damage reduction. So either way, that's just kind of how armor, health, and like damage scales a little bit, kind of goofily explained. So hope that helps, and we'll go to weapons now. Now I wanted to quickly talk about weapons that you would want to use the sacrificial set on, and I am proud to announce the sacrificial Umbral armor, or not armor, Umbral Forma on weapons. Okay, words are hard. Don't yell at me, words are hard. They're universally good, okay? You can throw sacrificial steel as well as sacrificial pressure essentially on any single melee weapon that has good crit chance building. It's essentially the best, though, if you're going to do a crit chance heavy attack build. Because you have to remember, 2x crit chance for heavy attacks. This gives 550% critical chance on heavy attacks. So if you have a very good Riven that gives you a lot of crit damage and stuff like that, and if you just have a lot of crit damage, it's a good heavy attack crit weapon. If your heavy attack stats are really good, right? Yeah, it'll build even harder. So any single weapon that has good stats is good for sacrificial steel and sacrificial pressure. You can also look at it like this. Sacrificial pressure is 110% melee damage, whereas primed pressure point is 165% melee damage. So if you're going to use sacrificial steel, you'll probably want to use sacrificial pressure. You probably will never want to use sacrificial pressure alone, okay? So it's either all or nothing. Sometimes you'll want to use sacrificial steel alone, though, because it is a very good critical chance melee mod, but there's just no reason to ever use sacrificial pressure as a single mod when there's stuff like primed pressure point and when there's stuff like condition overload, because it'll just do way more damage in general. So think of it like that. Sacrificial steel for critical chance, really good. Oh, because you have galvanized steel. That's more if you're looking for a good crit chance, but higher crit damage. Also a very good mod. Those are like the two you like to use around. And you can also do other building for crit chance, but true steel doesn't get anywhere close to sacrificial steel. So universally, sacrificial steel is way better for crit melee chance. You don't have to use the other one with it. But hey, that's how it kind of works there. I have my melee weapons all the time built with sacrificial steel and sacrificial pressure, just lazily like this. This is like an actual full build that I don't bother doing for a lot of things, okay? It really depends. I'm lazy, I'm not lazy, etc. and so forth. So if I have a lot of high rank, a lot of usage weapons like the war, usually I'll try to throw on at least one sacrificial steel, right? Might not care enough to throw on sacrificial pressure, right? Instead, I just use condition overload, but it's always still going to be universally really nice. I don't have a perfect crit or ribbon by any means. I just have that. I just don't care about weeping wounds. Simple. That's all. If you don't bother building your combo constantly, yeah, you don't really care. That's why Warframe builds, people are weird about them. They don't matter. You don't have to min-max. You don't have to care. You can just play. If you kill things, you're good to go. This one, instead of using the sacrificial mods, I went with primed pressure point and galvanized steel so that I could build more crit damage and everything. But on my second build, I went with the full sacrificial pressure and steel, swapping out the primed pressure point, okay? So there you go. It helps a lot on a lot of different melees. And it's just purely if you feel like building it, okay? That's the wonderful thing about Warframe. Sacrificial steel working in solo because I don't have the capacity for it, still really strong, still hella good, right? Not too shabby, not too shabby. And I guess for a Warframe, I'm trying to think, would Corvex be a good Warframe to build even more health and armor on? I don't know if you necessarily need more health and armor. Yeah, I don't think you necessarily need more health and armor by any means, but still a fun Warframe in general. Either way, everybody, I'm kind of curious. Let me know what weapons you like to use with your sacrificial, like, Umbral mods. Luckily, as long as you have a lot of Forma, you can usually slot in at least one of the crit sacrificial mods, and if you want both of them, you can slot in the crit and the extra damage one. But it really depends what kind of build you're going with. I have a tendency to always or more often use sacrificial steel for a little bit more crit, and I ignore sacrificial pressure just because the amount of times you hit heavy attacks with Tennokai is a lot higher now. So in my opinion, the value of sacrificial steel went up a good chunk because of that whole 2x crit chance for heavy attack. You're essentially going to kill most basic enemies and hard or strong Eximus units with a singular heavy attack. So it's just universally good if you have crit, and that's kind of what I like about the Umbral and sacrificial mods. Either way, everybody, good guide and yap session. I appreciate everyone being here. Hugs and kisses. As always, if you want to support the channel, you can use Epic Games creator code Pupsker, swing by any of the streams, and check out any of my links in the description. But I will continue on until next time, and I'll hope to see you there. Cheers, everybody.